Awesome. All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Seatech Student Research Symposium. My name is Anne Simonis. I am a researcher and adjunct professor at San Francisco State University. I also am an affiliate researcher with NOAA's Southwest Fisheries Science Center just across the hill. And I am an alum of Scripps Institution of Oceanography. I actually defended my PhD on this stage about 7 years ago. So it's really awesome to be back at Sumner and see everyone here. It's also really exciting for me to announce that we've been doing this program for like 16 years. And starting this year, moving forward, the Seatech family is going to be growing. So Nicole mentioned this a little bit at the beginning, but we're going to start working with other schools and teachers in different places besides Alaska. And that's through a generous grant from the Office of Naval Research. And we are going to be building this network of students and teachers and researchers that's called the Collaborative Ocean Research Experience, CORE. So we're the CORE network. And all of you are already part of the CORE network. To do this work, it takes a village, right? We as researchers and teachers are meeting with the students every week, but many of you online or in person have contributed data or your expertise, or maybe you've given a guest lecture to these students, or you brought something that you care about and have shared it with these students. Like, this is so important for how we do science. It's not only important for supporting these young scientists as they develop and hopefully pursue meaningful careers, live the lives that they want to live, but this is just how we want to operate as a community as well. So thank you for showing up. Thank you for being part of the CORE network. And I'm really looking forward to working with more of you in the future. So I do actually, before I step off the stage, I want to acknowledge that every week I mentioned we have researchers and students working with the high school students from Mount Edgecumbe. Nina Folz is one of our master's students who's been a fantastic mentor for the students throughout the year. Thank you so much, Nina. Couldn't do it without you. I also been working really closely with Josh Jones, who's been with Seatech from the very beginning. And so I want to hand it over to Josh to tell you a little bit about the history of the program, and then we'll introduce Mr. Mahoney and the students and get on with the program. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Anne. Yeah, thank you everyone for coming to the 16th annual Seatech Symposium. I'm going to be very brief and get out of the way so that you can listen to what you actually came here for, which is student research. But just a quick history. We started this program actually with the Ocean Institute in Dana Point. This was back in, I think, 2004, with Harry Helling at that time, who's now the director of Birch Aquarium here at Scripps. But he and we started this with an NSF program called Innovative Technology Experiences for Students and Teachers, ITEST. And it has since continued, well, in the follow-on from that 3-year program, which was here in California, in which we worked with Ocean Institute and Boys and Girls Clubs of San Juan Capistrano Valley. We met Mr. Mahoney and Mount Edgecumbe High School because the main part of Seatech for us, for our lab here at Scripps, was really just working together to do our research with an expanded lab that includes high school students and early undergraduate students. So Seatech is just a part of the way we do our research. So Mr. Mahoney, my favorite science teacher, joined us here at the end of that program. And then he developed Seatech that you are seeing today. That is, we're here to work with any young person who wants to work with us. Mr. Mahoney created this at the Mount Edgecumbe High School as a 4-credit science class with science prerequisites. And he'll tell you a little bit more about that. But I think the main thing I would leave you with is, in addition to, you're going to see some fabulous research that these young people are helping us with. But again, Seatech isn't an education program, as far as I understand education programs. It's just a part of the way that we can work. That is, we have a laboratory here at Scripps but we also have a distributed laboratory that includes other communities, other families. It includes some students from Mount Edgecumbe High School. Also, you'll hear about some other communities in Nunavut and even a hunters and trappers organization. So we hope in expanding Seatech that we can also expand the way that we're working with more places and more communities in whose waters we're doing research. So I'd like to introduce my friend Micheal Mahoney, and we can get on with the show. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'd like to start with talking a little bit about our unique school. Mount Edgecumbe High School is a state-funded public boarding school for about 400 students, 90% of whom are Alaska Native and come from over 100 different communities around the state. So in the fall, we fly our students to Mount Edgecumbe from their homes. They go to school in Sitka, and then in the end of the year, they fly home to their home communities. So some of our students fly from as many as 1,500 miles just to go to high school. The purpose of our school is to provide a stable education for rural Alaskans primarily to come and receive a well-earned education. The Seatech program is not a normal class. A normal class in high school, you have a teacher that comes and says, I'm going to drop some knowledge into your head, and then you're going to learn it. And then maybe they bring some experts in, and those experts say, if you go to school for a really long time, then you too can be what I am. Seatech is very different. We share data with students immediately. They work with professionals. They do the work themselves. They do all of the research and analysis themselves, and they're guided by researchers. And it's not me standing in front of class, it's them getting to drive the research that they do and learn how to be a scientist. And I think that that's extremely valuable. So in Seatech, we also develop these wonderful relationships with different organizations that provide networking for them and hopefully help them to get into school, the schools that they want to go to, and do the science that they want to do for the rest of their lives. So with that said, I'd like to bring my students up here and have them share with you their research that they've been working on for 6 months. Come on up. Go this way.
Hi, I'm Virginia Pearson, and as of last Thursday, I am a graduate of Mount Edgecumbe High School. I was born and raised in Sitka, Alaska, as pictured up here, and that is where we're located. So I only have to drive like 5 miles to get to school. I have the shortest commute out of, I think, all of us. I'm really outdoorsy. I really like to be outside. This is me when I was on the island of Hawaii over winter break, hanging with some cows. And I also am a multi-instrumentalist. So I was in a hardcore band last summer, and this is me playing a cover of the B-52's Rock Lobster with said band. And I was playing bass at that point. I also really like science, hence being here. This is from AP Biology, and that is a handful of glycolysis tubing filled with water and glucose. And I also got to go to sea with my mentor, Dr. Anne Simonis, last November. So this is a picture of me on a boat looking for whales. It was very cool. Greatly enjoyed myself. Next year, I will be attending Cal Poly Humboldt to study physics and molecular biology. Hello, my name is Gail. I'm Shalagi. I'm a clan is Wolf Clan. Up in that corner, that is my home village of Nordic Alaska. By air, the miles between Nordic and Sitka is 1,061 miles between the two.
Those are my two beloved pets, Nemesis and G-Stu. G-Stu is the rabbit. I'm not super creative in names because G-Stu just means rabbit in my native language. That is my extended family at Mount Edgecumbe High School. And extended family is when a teacher cares for like a group of students, kind of adopts them away. That is me as a little kid in my jingle dress. I've always been tied very closely to my culture. And that is a more recent picture of me during Whale Fest on a whale cruise.
Hello, my name is Reed Christensen. I am also a recent graduate from Adjunct High School, and I live in Sitka, Alaska, which is on the map under the sun. And if you know anything about Sitka, it's pretty ironic because it rains all the time. I really wanted to take Seatech because I hope to study oceanography in college, and I just love anything ocean related. In my free time, I like to bike, hike, and thrift, as well as kayak. And after this, I'm gonna go home, spend the summer in Sitka as a kayak guide. After that, I hope to attend Western Washington in Bellingham and pursue a degree in marine and coastal sciences. In the top right corner is a picture of me sunset hunting with one of my friends. This is a selfie with a Brachiosaurus at the Smithsonian Museum of Natural History. And this last picture is 5-year-old me at the beach taking pictures. Thank you.
Alagumisi Softapukin, Tanakhamidi Milanga Kaktapukin, Tanakhamidi Kayushika Ilan Tanagikukin. Hi, my name is Kanan Zahara. I'm from St. Paul Island, which is that little star with the arrow pointing to it in the middle of the Bering Sea in the Proglaus of Alaska. This beach right here on the bottom right is a beach of Gorbatch, where I really like to go in the winter with my friends and watch the waves when the seals aren't there. This next photo is of me and my cousin Janelle on my sweet 16th birthday. And this next photo is of me and my childhood friend Julia at the seal harvest, where we got to go harvest seals. And these next two photos are of my cat Chuki, which means socks in my native language. And those are socks.
Luluta, Unga Atea, Kayatuk, Tanixing Edwin Solomon, Cocktail Community. Hi, my name is Edwin Solomon. I'm from the North Slope region. This is me, my brother, and my nieces dancing during a halftime show during the Southwest region volleyball, or not volleyball games. It was basketball games. This is where I'm from, Barter Island, or otherwise known as Kaktovik. The Kaktovik means place of seining or fish. My hometown is most known for polar bears. I've been chased by multiple. It's not fun. My uncles like to play peekaboo. I am also a recent graduate of Mount Edgecumbe High School. This is me and my walking partner, Joey. I hunt, fish, love dancing. Most of all, I love exploring Alaska. I've been around science my whole life, from oceanographers from ExxonMobil to fisherman game, counting polar bears. Thank you. Uh-oh. That's not good.
Just click back on the speaker.
Okay. Pond Inlet. Habits, oddities, and patterns in the Pond Inlet Canadian Arctic. I'm presenting the data site for the Arctic Room. As you can see, this is where we collect data from. Oh, that's better. We collect data during the winter and early spring by Scripps scientists who put the high frequency acoustic recording packages or HARP in the ocean to gather data. On the image in front of you is where we put the package. The Inuit Kutalik region located in Nunavut is the area of interest because of maritime traffic. Pond Inlet is a very structural part of the Arctic Circle shipping route through the archipelago of Nunavut. It is very difficult to ship cargo in the wintertime due to the landfast ice, which supports the ecosystem. There is also the Mary River mine that multiplies the effect of shipping activity.
This is a high-frequency acoustic recording package or a HARP. The Whale Acoustics Lab at Scripps put these packages into the ocean, and the instrument records the sound that the marine organisms make. Scripps takes the HARP and puts the data into a hard drive and sends it to us. The data that we looked at is funded by Oceans North. The diagram you can see is written in both English and Inuit that describes all the parts of the HARP. The orange balls you can see here are the flotation device which keeps the instrument off of the ground with the ocean floor. And the hydrophone is like the ears, which records the data and sends it to the sound recorder. And then after the year's worth of data is recorded, Scripps takes them from the bottom of the ocean and is processed and sent to MDHS where we can analyze it. So what do we used to see with the HARP records? Well, we used Triton. And Triton is a MATLAB-based program made by Scripps that allows us to see sound. Triton is a software that puts data where we can see it because it's a lot easier to see a year's worth of data in 2-hour time chunks than to listen to it. We use a long-term spectral average, or an LTSA, which is this right here. On the x-axis, it's 0 to 2-hour times, so time in hours. And on the y-axis is 0 to usually 10,000 hertz, but this diagram right here, you can see it only goes to 3,000 hertz, and so I was looking at estimated data. And on the second y-axis, you can see there's this other bar, and it has the cooler colors and warmer colors. The cooler colors are the quieter noises, and the warmer colors are louder noises. We think as frequency as pitch. So the quieter the noises are, the bottom they are, and the louder they are in pitch, the higher up they will be. Once you find an area you would like to look at on the LTSA, you go to the spectrogram. So I would click around an area, and it would go to this, which is a spectrogram. The spectrogram and the LTSA are basically the same, but the spectrogram is where you can listen to it in 30-second time chunks. And right here you can see this is a bearded seal call, and it's pretty loud because you can see it's dark red, and the background is cool. Which leads me next into my presentation about the bearded seal call repertoire in Pond Inlet, Canada 2021. Erignathus barbatus, or more commonly known as the bearded seal, are Arctic to subarctic animals. They weigh about 2 to 3, they are about 2 to 3 meters long, which is about 6 to 9 feet. They weigh 200 to 430 kilograms, which is about 440 pounds to 949 pounds. Bearded seals are circumpolar, which means they are around the polar region. The white shaded region you can see on this graph is the ocean, the gray shaded region is the land, and the teal is where bearded seals are. Bearded seals are benthic feeders, which means they eat marine invertebrates from off the floor and love resting on floating ice between feedings. Male bearded seals make a range of different sounds to attract mates. Let's take a look at some of those sounds. This is a long trill. A long trill is a basic primary modulation, which just means it goes up and down. And they are they very long noises. So I'm only gonna play half of it since it's like 50 seconds. That was a long trill. And this one, this spectrogram shows a long trill, a short trill, and a down sweep. A short trill is basically like a long trill, but shorter. And a down sweep has no primary modulations, which means it just goes down. And I'm gonna play the audio, and I'm also, oh, give me a second. And I'm also gonna tell you which ones you can hear. That in the background is a long trill. So bearded seals make a lot of noises, and I can use them to detect the presence of bearded seals and the geological differences, which leads me into my methods intro. So part one of my methods intro is I did the acoustic presence of bearded seals in 2021. And with that, I looked at the LTSA and I did it in 2-hour time resolution. 2-hour time resolution. And I basically look at the LTSA and see, are there bearded seal calls? And if there was, I would log it. But if there's a 30-minute or more disruption in between the bearded seal calls, or I couldn't see them, I would not log them. And then after I did that, I was like, whoa, bearded seals are so cool. Like, oh my goodness. And I wanted to learn more about them. So I read about over 15 papers about bearded seal male vocalizations. And I stumbled across one by Denise Reich, which was male bearded seals, geological variations between them. And that's when I was like, whoa, I want to do this. Because again, I already love bearded seals, and that just made me love them more. So I used her paper and I did the classification for the calls, which is the local repertoire, the characteristics of call, and I decided I want to compare it to Denise Reich's paper and make my own. This graph I'm showing you is going to help you understand the next one. On the top, you can see this is the maximum frequency, which is the highest it goes, and the start frequency, which is when it starts, and it falls down to the minimum frequency, which is the lowest it goes, and the end frequency. This bearded seal call you can see is an Alaskan bearded seal call, which is not what I studied, but this is a really great image to help you with this next one. This is a high Canadian Arctic trill, which is near Resolute Bay. And how I use this. Oh. Oops. And how I use this is I would start from the top of the frequency range. Is the frequency range greater than or equal to 1,353? If yes, I'll go to the left, which I had a really hard time figuring out to do when I first started this, and Mr. Mahoney had to write yes or no on the paper. And if the duration was greater than or equal to 16.8 seconds, then I would go to the left again, which is a high Canadian Arctic 1 trill. And basically it was a no. For this one, I would go this way, and if the frequency range is greater than 240.7, then I go yes, and it's this whole entire thing. And after I did that, I wanted to do contours, but how did I do the contours? Well, I used pick XYZ. I used pick XYZ. And how did I use what does pick XYZ stand for? Pick XYZ stands for the intensity, time, and frequency of the call. And how I would do that is I would have a spectrogram that's like this, and I would start from the top of the call and I would follow it down below. So I would click it, and I click up, down, up, down, up, down. You kind of get the gist. And then I would do the end, and then after the end, I had to show that the call is done, so I did it above 4,000 hertz. And then after I did that, I determined the code. And after I determined the code, we used MATLAB to extract the calls, which looks like this. And then Dr. Josh Jones did it for me, and the end contour would look like that. Oh. What did I find from this stuff? Well, in part one, this is what I found. This is a graph. And on the x-axis is 0 to 24-hour times. And on the y-axis, it's February to June, which is the dates. And these yellow bars you can see are bearded seals. Not the yellow ones, the purple ones are the bearded seals. And the yellow ones are other. And as you look, there's these gaps. So we'll get to those gaps later. There's a presence of them in February. And let me move this again. And you can see there's almost a 24-hour presence of bearded seals in February, which is crazy. And then there's these gaps, and again, there's almost this 24-hour presence that goes all the way down, which is crazy. 24, because that means I saw bearded seals 24/7, except for these gaps. And these gaps, I couldn't log them because there's either a storm or I couldn't see what it was. And the yellow shaded, not yellow, the shaded region is when the sun is below the horizon, which means it has set. And this yellow, white region you can see is when the bearded seal, not when the bearded seal, is when the sun is above the horizon or has risen. And these are our results part 2, which leads into these calls. This is a sawtooth call. A sawtooth call is a primary secondary modulation, which basically means it goes up and down for a very long time. And this call is, gotta warn you, it's long, like usual bearded seal calls, but it's very important to listen to, so I'm gonna play it. That was a sawtooth call. This next call is a call sequence that I found. And this is a linear downtoll with an ascent followed by a downsweep. And this is a new sequence. And I'm going to play what it sounds like because in my opinion, this is one of the best bearded seal calls I've ever heard. And that was the call sequence, which I have not found a name for yet, but I will find one. The next call is a bump call and an L call, but those are our primary modulations with an inflection in the middle. And I'm going to play it for you. Those are only the calls I found. It's not really into my results yet, and these are my part 2 results. So this is a graph which shows this time in 1/10 seconds and the frequency. And on this left side of the graph, it shows it has an ascending part, which means anywhere in the call, it goes up. And as you can see right here, there's a bunch of sawtooth calls. Oh, and I forgot to say this is in the first deployment of CANARC in 2016. And as you can see, there's a bunch of sawtooth calls in here, and calls that just generally have an ascent. And in the middle one, does not have an ascent part, which means it just goes down. So if you go down here, it's just a sweep. And right here, you can see the bump calls I was talking about, and the L calls that I was talking about. And I didn't mention this one, but this is a mountain call. A mountain call right here, it just goes up. And this right one starts with an ascent, so that means it goes up instead of down. And on this bottom one, it's the same exact thing, but these ones were done in the 6th deployment in 2021, done by me and Dr. Jones. And we did a number of 495 call contours, and on top is done by Eden Borsak and Dr. Josh Jones, and they did over 4,000 contours on this, which is a crazy amount. So what did I learn from this? Well, in part one, I know there's a seasonal presence of bearded seals, and when it's windy and stormy, we cannot detect them. In part two, I found that the repertoire is consistent with the 2016 data, which means they're alike. That's a 5-year gap. And there's previously undescribed call types in this region, which is the Thorcon call, which is found in Norway also, the hump call, which is found near Resolute Bay, and these 3 calls have never been found before, which is a mountain call, the sequence I showed, and the L call. And these are all calls I have found, which is super cool. You might be thinking by now, why should I care about bearded seals? They're just animals. Well, you should care about bearded seals because indigenous people in Alaska and Canada care about bearded seals. And for me, I care about bearded seals so much because where I'm from, we have northern fur seals, and my love for the fur seals went into my love for my bearded seals. And bearded seals also provide subsistence, clothing, and food for the indigenous people. And this project is also in partnership with the Micheal Hunters and Trappers organization in Pond Inlet. Why is it important to them though? Well, it's important to the MHTO because it's an Inuit-led environmental monitoring and research management and decision making. And my acoustic stuff I found helps them make those decisions. Next is future research. Well, I'm already doing the future research right now because even though I show this, my 6 months of research, I'm still gonna continue it. And I'm working with Denise Reich and Dr. Jones, and we are writing a paper about the geological accent, you could say, because like we all speak English, but there's different voices from different places. So these bearded seals have their own unique accent, and I'm going to study and write a paper about this unique accent these bearded seals in Pond Inlet have. Next, I'd like to go to my acknowledgements, and I would like to thank the Micheal Mahoney Hunters and Trappers organization, Alex Kutula from Oceans North, the organization, Scripps Institution of Oceanography, Whale Acoustics Laboratory, Dr. Denise Reich, Scottish Associations for Marine, for helping me get here and helping with my research, and the U.S. Navy STEAM program for helping me and my Seatech people get down to San Diego. Any questions? Oh, yeah.
Oh, fantastic. I was wondering if there were different, why do bearded seals make different calls? Like, are there different behaviors associated with different calls? Or something talk about maybe food or predators?
From the papers I have read, bearded seals make calls to attract mates. So like the louder the noise is, the more powerful they seem because they have to get through the ice to communicate, and that just shows they're a more worthy mate. Any other questions? Then I'm gonna hand it to my coworker.
Hi, my name is Edwin, and I'm presenting Walrus Presence in Pond Inlet 2021. Atlantic Walrus, Rosemaris, Odobenus, Rosemaris, Ivic, the Inupiaq word. Inuit, maybe Yupik word for walrus. Males can weigh about over 1,700 kilos, while females are a third of the weight on average. The reason, oh, they are very tasty. The reason I know this is called a dish called urak. It is fermented in a bucket or underground, and the smell is horrid. Worse. If you imagine the worst smell you have ever smelled, imagine 10 times. They're a very unique creature. They're the last or the sole living member of the Odobenidae family. Subsistence is a crucial part of most coastal communities of Inupiaq and Inuit. We depend upon most of the marine mammals in the Arctic. This is aligned with one of my Inupiaq values, hunting traditions. Feeding habits. On the continental shelf is where they mostly feed. They feed mostly on clams, mussels, paleogenic fish, but if they are hungry enough, they will also eat small seals. They prefer ice over beaches, and the way they get onto the ice is pulling themselves with their tusks. The Latin name means tooth walker because of the way they drag their tusks as they wriggle on the ice. Hierarchy. The males with the largest tusks have the highest chances to mate with females. This is not the only way they assert their dominance. They also make noises. This biological warning is performed above water, but is also demonstrated underwater, with air sacs connected to their pharynx or vocal cords. Most of the time, they form herds into hundreds and beyond, as you can see right here. I think that's maybe over 1,000. They can cause quite the commotion in the environment they abode in. At times, they can even alter plane traffic. When a plane flies overhead, it spooks the herd, and which can lead into a stampede in which pups are trampled. Methods. We use Triton to explore the data of the Eastern eclipse sound recordings in detail. We log the presence of different sounds through January through July. Bearded seal, walrus, ring seal, WTHU. We'll get to that later. I'm gonna speak upon my results of walrus, types of sounds I found, seasonal presence, and why it's important for walrus to be in the eclipse sound. Walrus knocks. My calls are different from cadence calls. I'll show you instead of talking about it. As you can hear, they're quite simple, impulsive calls to let other males know that this is their territory. The small red dot represents the knocks on the LTSA. Right there. The little rectangle things, that's where I click on to recognize the knocks. The graph below it is the X-wave file for a deep dive into the calls. I'll be using an more up close version of the X-wave file for the rest of the presentation to see it in depth of the sound. This is another example. The longer the males can keep up the knocks, the more impressive the females think they are, and to divert other males from competing. And the weird scratchy noises is the hard drive disk recording itself, recording the walrus. You might be wondering, what does WTHU stand for? It stands for what the heck unknowns, which are sounds we cannot, which are sounds we couldn't describe in the moment. What do you think this sound is for? Oh, just pretend you didn't see that. What do you think the sound was made for? No, the guy with the curly hair in the back. Does the Zoom audience want to know what, or does the Zoom audience want to speak upon what they think it is or might be?
Sorry, home weather is saying fish.
No. I'm sorry, it's not fish. Ooh. After speaking with Alex, he's currently here. Do you want to say hi? I can't hear him. Did he say hi? After speaking with him, he's told us that some hunters have told stories about walrus eating ring seal, and this is a seal murder. This is a ring seal. The day before. The day before. This is the victim yield. Ring seals love to bark. Did I make a warning? Yeah, I should make a warning. The next image might be too gory for most people. Oh, shoot. That is a seal eaten by a walrus. As you can see, there's no teeth marks. The reason why is that the tusks of the walrus, there's no front teeth. They don't have front teeth. It's strange. But the way they eat them is through immense force with their lips, sucking the meat off the bones. There's a hole in the skull. That's how immense the walrus lips are. All the eyes are sucked out. That's not a good way to go. Okay, these are my results. The x-axis is the 24-hour format that we listen to. And the y-axis is the months and dates of how many days we've done. The yellow is walrus. Right here, right here. The purple is bearded. I was focusing more on, wait, me and Caden were both doing bearded at one point, but I got off track with what the heck unknowns. And I switched to walrus because of that. Blue is narwhal. The victims are green, and orange is unidentified. I don't know. Oh, right there. I don't know what that was, but I don't know. Something to look into later. As you can see, we use the same graph for day and night cycle. Yeah, I've noticed that they're more active at night than in day, near dusk and dawn. And I don't know. I don't know why they like it. Oh, wait, I do remember why they like it. It's because in February, it is their mating season, and I don't know. I don't know why they like. Wait, I actually do know why they like it. I just don't want to talk about it right now. It's a little embarrassing. Discussion. Walrus are not usually in this area. Usually in Pond Inlet, you don't see walrus. However, this was a year unusually high in sea ice concentration. The harp is located at the star, and the black line represents the ice flow edge of 2021. The purple is where the ice flow usually is at. As you can see near the black line is the harp device. Where the harp device was placed. Over the harp site, which is why we're able to acoustically detect the walrus. They aren't usually found around here. They're usually more northern in the winter. I would like to thank Mitmakatla, or no, that's, I try to say Mitamali, not Mitmakatla, that's a place in southeast. Mitamali and Hunters and Trappers Organization, Pond Inlet in Nunavut, Alex Utuvuk, Oceans North, Pond Inlet and Nunavut, Oceans North, the organization for helping us, the Scripps Institution for giving us the data we needed to track walrus, bearded seal, and ring seal, the US Navy for funding this program, and my mentors Nina and Josh Jones for helping me solve this mystery. Thank you. Any questions? Yes?
Often you see the, whatchamacallit signal.
What the heck are nodes?
Yeah, the one.
I think I've seen it at least 3 times.
And do you think that relates to like different foraging strategies or preferences?
What the heck unknowns are usually a wide variety of things like anthropogenic sounds, self-made sounds, and something we cannot explain. That's the whole basis of what the heck unknowns.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Is there any more questions from the Zoom audience? I will introduce the next group. Ready?
Yeah, if you get a question, if you could repeat the question so the Zoom audience can hear it.
Cool. As you've seen and heard in previous presentations, Seatech is a class for understanding underwater acoustics, especially for marine mammals. Every year, students present new research on animals such as seals, dolphins, whales, and walrus, and come here to Scripps to present. Bouncing off of that, we would like to play a sound for you guys and see if anyone can figure out what it is. Okay, any guesses?
We have a helicopter over here.
Helicopter? Anything else? Yeah? It is a fish. It's specifically the Pikachu rockfish. Now, the story of how Rhea and I got started on this research is, as she said, kind of funny considered most other Seatech research is on marine mammals. When we first came upon rockfish calls within the LTSA, we mistook them for self-noids because they look very similar visually in the LTSA. Ella Kim was the one who identified them as rockfish calls, and her knowledge was invaluable in guiding Rhea and I's background research. Okay, into the nitty-gritty. Sebastus posipinus, or also known as salmon rockfish or snappers, are often misidentified as yellow eyes, which is another type of rockfish, but they're very different. Boccaccio are suspected to live upwards to 50 years and begin reproducing between 4 to 7 years old. Interestingly, and in contrast to other bony fish, Boccaccio females have internal fertilization and embryonic development, meaning they give birth to live young. At birth, the young are in open water, and as they grow, they transfer to more kelp-forested but still open areas, and the juveniles are closer to shore in eelgrass, kelp-forested, and rocky areas. As adults, they move out into open water deep near rocky areas. In terms of total growth, Boccaccio can reach up to 3 feet long and 21 pounds, and have backs that are either olive, brown, or dark brown, and have pink and red stomachs. The primary reason for fishing Boccaccio is for recreational and subsistence, but they've also been caught commercially, which led to a decrease in the Puget Sound populations especially. Throughout the talk, we will be referring to Boccaccio just as rockfish. This is a range map highlighting the range that the species are present at, starting primarily in Mexico, but also some in South America. The species stretch all the way up the coast to Alaska and out to the Aleutians. This map was created by the Committee on the Status of Endangered Wildlife in Canada, because we have populations there in British Columbia, but it doesn't go into detail into what exactly the blocks represent. However, the map describes the global distribution. As we heard in our intro, rockfish do indeed make noise. Using sonic muscles around their swim bladder, they're able to create a fast-paced knocking or vibration noise by vibrating the bladders. The noise for Boccaccio occurs between 100 to 200 hertz, and are often started after sunset and stop at or a few hours after sunrise, which indicates a clear diurnal cycle. In terms of noise, this is not our first talking fish. On this slide, there are 2 other examples of other fish that make noise: the bearded toadfish not very pretty, but also the sprawled cowfish.
Okay, so before we get into our own results, we would like to give you guys some background information on rockfish calling behavior. This is a figure from Cook et al.'s research. It is called Ending the Day with a Song, Patterns of Calling Behavior in a Species of Rockfish. As you can see at the top, it shows a figure showing a full lunar cycle from the new moon back around to the new moon once again. And seeing the potential correlation between their calling behavior and the lunar cycle really intrigued me and Marie, and it inspired the focus of our research. However, our research differed in one key aspect from Cook et al.'s research. Their research focused on rockfish calling behavior, while ours focused on rockfish chorusing behavior. Now you may be wondering, what's a chorus? Well, a chorus is the period of time that rockfish may call over, while a call is just one individual call. A chorus typically spans over 48 hours, with one chorus per 24 hours. We hypothesized that the higher lunar illumination of the full moon would lead to a shorter duration of rockfish chorusing. So, before we can test our hypothesis, we need to get to know our study site and how to identify Boccaccio rockfish choruses. Our study site was MBO5, which is a moored buoy on the seafloor at a depth of 98 meters. It had a sampling rate of 48 kilohertz. The time that we looked at for our research was the month of March 2023, and the data was provided to us by John Ryan at MBARI, or the Monterey Bay Aquarium Research Institute. We decimated our data down to 2 kilohertz because of the low frequency of the rockfish calls. They became covered up by other noise in the environment, such as humpback whale calls, ships, storms, and even self noise. To kind of show how big of a difference decimating the data made, I put this slide together for you guys. That is the undecimated LTSA. And along the bottom, you can see a little bit of light blue. Can't really make out what it is. And same story on the spectrogram. There's a little bit of something down at the bottom, but you can't identify what it is. However, the difference becomes very clear once we decimate the data. And now we can see the rockfish choruses. Those bands, each band is 1 chorus, and so we see the 2 choruses for the 48 time scale that we're looking at. And in the spectrogram, we can very clearly see the triangle-shaped calls of the rockfish.
So after collecting your data, we were able to analyze it into 4 figures. This is our first figure. Our x-axis is UTC minus 7.0, which adjusted our time frame to California time. Our y-axis is our dates of deployment through March of 2023. The blue horizontal bars right here represent the rockfish course duration, which, as Dale highlighted earlier, is much different opposed to calls. The orange to light gray underlaid vertical bars serve as our lunar presence by illumination. So the less illumination we have, the more gray we'll see. In this graph and the next, as well as the other ones, the dark gray areas are representative of dates where we were unable to extract data due to what has been assumed to be a storm, and it caused our soundscape to have too much background noise to see the chorus. We also had 124 hours that had no chorusing on March 11th. While it can be difficult to make out due to the duration of the chorus, we don't see a clear correlation between duration and lunar presence by illumination on individual days. We do, however, have a very clear diurnal pattern showing up. This is our second figure. Our x-axis is dates of deployment again. Our y-axis is total hours chorusing from 0 to 15 hours. The shading of the bars is representative of the lunar illumination at that date and is shaded based on illumination percentage. So, as illumination increases, our shade lightens. Full moon on this graph is near the beginning of the month. Again, the grayed out area is our storm. Within this graph, we see that our longest chorus encounter lasted around 15 hours, and the shortest lasted around 9. The average hours called a day was 11.4 hours, excluding the 2 instances where data could not be collected. Again, we're not seeing a clear correlation in duration of the chorus and lunar illumination. Moving on to figure 3, our x-axis is lunar day, the full moon is day 15. The graphics below are to show as a reference to the full lunar cycle. Our y-axis is duration of chorusing. Our points represent the actual individual days and the data that we collected in that time frame. The wide gray area on the graph represents our 95% confidence interval, and as we can see, the majority of our plots fall within that. The blue line is our best fit line. This shows a clear trend in the data directly influenced by the plots. In contrast to our prior 2 graphs, we do see an influence from lunar day in the total duration of calls. The relationship shown does not support our hypothesis, and we see that the chorus is occurring for longer durations near or during the full moon. Moving on to figure 4. This figure was actually created just last night and is fairly new, so I'm very excited to share it with you guys. On our top graph, our x-axis is our dates throughout March 2023. Our y-axis is the sound intensity recorded at the frequency of 125 hertz. So this is different than the duration that we were looking at before. 125 hertz is the frequency at which rockfish chorus at. The dark blue plots represent the intensity at night, and the orange represent the intensity during the day. On the bottom of the graph, our x-axis again are dates throughout March. We have the same lunar cycle reference below, with the full moon occurring March 7th and the new moon at March 21st. The black plots represent the location of the moon in the sky. While we might not see a clear pattern initially, we did notice some sort of repetition, which led to this. Looking for a more concrete pattern, we decided to focus on peak intensity during the night due to chorus presence happening at night. The red lines drawn here were started at the top of a nightly peak, such as this one, and drawn directly down to the corresponding moon location and altitude. We saw that during the highest intensity of sound happening at night correlated with the moon reaching its highest altitude. This was especially consistent with the full moon, but as we move towards the new moon, this way, we see less and less of a distinct correlation and more variation. Then, as we increase back to the full moon, we see those peaks begin to line up again. This graph indicates that during the full moon, chorus intensity peaks with the peak height of the moon.
What we found was Kachu rockfish only chorus at night. There are some times where they will continue chorusing a little in after dawn. There's not a consistent stop time. There is some variation to it. However, they do not continue chorusing during the day. And the duration and intensity was affected by the moon. On the new moon, the choruses were longer, but of a lower intensity. And on the full moon, they were shorter, however, they were a higher intensity. So, what could that mean? One thing is they're being affected by the moon, the brightness levels. However, another possibility is that they're being affected by the tides, because the different phases of the moon affect the tides, which could then affect their coursing behavior. So, why does this matter? We mentioned earlier the Puget Sound population, which was put onto the endangered species list in 2010 and remains on the list to this day. The reason for that is overfishing, and this population is currently being monitored due to their critical status. And the previous ways of measuring the population of fish in the Puget Sound was to fish them up to try and get an idea of how many are down there, which is not very great when you're working with a species that is in critical condition, due to the fact that fishing, like bringing the Picacho up, often had a high mortality rate. And this is due to barotrauma. Now you may think, what's barotrauma? Well, barotrauma is caused by the sudden lessening of pressure on the fish, since they're deep water fish. And what this does is, you see that pink thing there, the sudden decompression forces their stomachs out of their mouth, which is not great, not very healthy. Some fishing weights and methods of returning the Picacho to their depth have been created. However, there is still a mortality rate with it. Therefore, bioacoustic monitoring is a less intrusive way of population assessment and management, due to the fact that it doesn't endanger the fish which are already in critical condition. So, thank you. Thank you to the Mount Edgecumbe Seatech teachers and mentors, Scripps Institution of Oceanography, Dr. John Ryan at MBARI, the U.S. Navy STEM program, and family and friends. Does anyone have any questions?
I was just really curious about that one day, March 11th, when you didn't catch any foraging presents. Is that due to the data, or was the data fine? Just find it, and if that's the case, why did you think there was no foraging presents?
Yeah, so we had a, yeah.
Could you repeat the question for the people?
No, I'm going to.
Oh.
Yeah. So we had a day, as was pointed out by an audience member, where we had no data on March 11th, and they were wondering if there was a reason for this, if we couldn't find anything, if we had a dead zone, and if we couldn't find anything because it wasn't there, why is that? So that's a really, the graph, okay. Hold on. I can do it. Oh, you got it? Cool. Yeah, so it's that really blank part there where you can see the orange pretty clearly. it was a day where we just could not find chorusing, and I don't know why. There weren't really any environmental indicators as to why we couldn't see that. I don't remember particularly if there are any species in the area, other species that might, create that absence, but I think it's really worth going back and looking at what are the other factors around that and why are they not chorusing, because we did notice it. And when we first created this figure, we actually went back and were like, did we make a mistake? Did we miss something? But they just weren't there. But yeah, thank you. Are there any other questions?
I'm wondering if you thought about water temperature or seasonality, summer, winter, and so on. That's part of the work, or do you work on that?
So we actually haven't looked into that, but it's definitely something that we considered. He was asking if we looked into seasonality or if water temperature has affected it, and if we thought about that in our study. And again, we haven't really looked into it just yet, but I think it's something really important to consider, especially because the range of rockfish, the picachios, it's just so broad. And so we have a lot of different water temperature that we're working with. But yeah, we didn't look at that in this study, but again, something really important to look into. Thank you. Is there anything else we can answer? Thank you so much for having us.
Good afternoon. I'm Virginia Pearson, and I'm presenting my comparison of California humpback whale song occurrence collected in coastal and deep water in March of 2023. This is Megaterra novenglai, aka the humpback whale. Adult humpbacks get to be between 11 and 17 meters in length, which is approximately the size of a school bus, and they get to be between 23 and 40 metric tons. There is sexual dimorphism in humpbacks, with adult females generally being about a meter longer than the males. Humpbacks are mysticedes or baleen whales, so their diet mainly consists of krill, plankton, and small fish. Humpbacks are found throughout the major oceans. During the migration between their high latitude summer feeding grounds and low latitude winter breeding grounds, the species has been observed migrating up to 8,000 kilometers in a single direction, which is approximately the distance between New York City and Istanbul, Turkey. 4 of the 14 distinct population segments of humpback whale are endangered under the Endangered Species Act, and 1 is considered threatened. And humpbacks are protected throughout their range under the Marine Mammal Protection Act. Like many marine animals, humpback whales use sound as their primary form of communication. Humpback sounds are categorized as song and non-song sounds, which both sexes make non-song sounds, which generally fall between 9 hertz and 6 kilohertz, and serve a variety of communication functions. During the winter breeding season, and to a lesser extent during the migration season, male humpback whales produce complex songs, which range in frequency between 100 hertz and 4 kilohertz, and can have harmonics up to 64 kilohertz. Although the exact function of song isn't completely known, it likely plays a role in mating behavior. This is a spectrogram, or a graph of sound. The y-axis represents frequency, and the x-axis represents time. The colors show the intensity of sound, with warmer colors representing higher intensity and cooler colors representing lower intensity. This spectrogram shows a 30-second chunk of humpback whale sound from a song session in Monterey Bay in March of 2023. This is a nice example of humpback sounds. There isn't a whole lot of background noise happening here, and the whale sounds are super clear. And this is what it sounds like. In my analysis, I defined song as proposed by Payne and McVeigh in 1971 and followed guidance in Chaleviak et al. 2012. Humpback song is hierarchical in structure. The smallest unit of song that is detectable by human ears is the unit. Multiple units repeat to make phrases, and multiple phrases repeat to make themes. A song is defined as a sequence of repeated themes. In this figure, we can see how the units make up the subphrases and the phrases. This is a spectrogram from Monterey Bay showing a part of a song session in March of 2023. We can see here how the units make up the phrases, which make up the theme, which is then repeated throughout the song. The data I used in my analysis was collected during NOAA's March 2023 Central Coast Collaborative Passive Acoustic Monitoring Survey, which was conducted off the central coast of California near Morro Bay. I used data from a stationary mooring as well as from drifting buoys. In the red box, you can see the paths that the floating buoys took after they were released. And this is the location of MBO5, which is the stationary mooring that I used data from. The data collected from the drifters was analyzed by Dr. Caitlin Palmer, and the data from MBO5 was collected in a collaboration between NOAA Sanctuaries and the Monterey Bay Aquarium Research Institute. Dr. John Ryan gave me access to the MBO5 data for my analysis. These deployments are located in and near the Morro Bay wind energy area, which is an area where an offshore wind farm is going to be built. I would also like to mention that last November, I got to travel to this area and help deploy and recover more drifting buoys with my mentor, Dr. Anne Simonis, and it was very cool. I learned lots. Solid 10 out of 10. As I mentioned, I use data from drifting buoys and from a stationary mooring. While drifting deployments and stationary deployments both collect acoustic data, there are various advantages and disadvantages associated with each. A stationary mooring can record for a number of months, but is limited to a single point in space. Stationary moorings are also limited by depth. In this study, they were limited to waters shallower than 200 meters. Drifting deployments can only record for a number of weeks at most, but can cover tens of kilometers of area. And they're not limited by depth, as their hydrophones are suspended below the surface of the water. The different deployments also collected data at different sample rates. The stationary deployment collected up to 48 kilohertz, but I only scanned up to 4 kilohertz. And the drifting deployments collected up to 384 kilohertz. My goal in my analysis was to document humpback song presence and compare coastal and offshore hydrophone deployments. This plot compares song presence in MBO5 with the song presence in all of the 8 drifters. The x-axis shows the date between March 1st and April 1st of 2023, and the y-axis shows the fraction of each day that there was humpback song detected. The black line on each graph shows the fraction of each day that the study was on effort. The dips in the effort line show times when there was either no data available or there was too much background noise for us to accurately make detections. You can see that the song presence in the drifters is high and is pretty constant throughout the effort dates, whereas the song presence in MBO5 is much more varied. These drops in song on the MBO5 plot are particularly interesting. Additionally, we can see that there is high song presence in the drifters during times when there is little to no song presence in MBO5. This is the same figure as the last slide, but with non-song detections added in blue. We can see that in MBO5, the month starts with a relatively low non-song presence and a high song presence, but around March 13th, the song presence drops off and there's an increase in non-song, and that lasts through the end of the month. In the drifters, the non-song presence is less stable than the song presence, And it has this drop near the end of the detection dates as well. This is a map showing the spatial variance of song detection in the drifters. Water depth is shown in color, and there's Monterey Bay NBO5 and Morro Bay for spatial context. The X and Y axes show longitude and latitude. Song presence is shown in pink, and points with no song detection are shown in gray. Similar to the last figures, we can see that there is a near constant song presence in the drifters, and that it's pretty evenly spaced. My main goal in my analysis was to document humpback song presence and evaluate the trade-offs between coastal and offshore deployments. I noted multiple deep drops in song in NBO5 that didn't appear in the drifters. The overall song presence in NBO5 was quite varied throughout the month of March, whereas the song presence in the drifters was generally stable around 100%. These differences could be caused by a higher density of singing whales in the deeper water near the drifters. They could also be attributed to the drifters' ability to cover a greater area of ocean than a single stationary deployment can. This is the plot with the song and non-song, but I've zoomed in on just the drifters. We can see that there isn't a time during the effort dates where the non-song detections are higher than the song detections. This could be attributed to the fact that song is broadcast by male whales, so it's generally louder and for a longer duration than non-song sounds are. The documentation of humpback whale song is important for understanding when and why humpback whales sing, as well as for a greater understanding of the species as a whole. Comparing coastal and offshore deployments is important for informing future acoustic studies on the trade-offs of different deployment types. Why should you care about whale science? Whales are cool. There are a few other animals that inspire environmental tourism and conservation the way whales do. And it's my hope that increasing public access to whale science will inspire all of us to be better stewards of our oceans. All whales are protected under the Marine Mammal Protection Act, and many are protected under the Endangered Species Act, which means that we have a legal obligation to protect these animals. This data was also collected in and near the Morro Bay wind energy area. Collecting data in this area allows us to establish a baseline for normal conditions in the area before construction begins. This can then be compared to future acoustic data, which will allow scientists to evaluate the effects of offshore wind energy on the local marine environment. This study showed that there are humpback whales in and near the Morro Bay wind energy area in March, and that they are displaying both song and non-song sounds. This knowledge is important for planning construction that will have the least impact on the local whales. Some future research questions that I have are, what are the effects of anthropogenic noise on humpback song presence? How does song transmit information? And how much information is transmitted through whale vocalization? I would also like to repeat this study, but with a greater number of deployments and over a longer period of time for a more detailed analysis. This could actually be done with existing NOAA data from the west coast of the United States that was collected with both drifting deployments and stationary deployments. I would like to thank Dr. John Ryan at the Monterey Bay Aquarium Research Institute for giving me access to the March NBO5 data, Dr. Caitlin Palmer at NOAA Southwest Fisheries Science Center for her guidance on classifying humpback sounds, as well as for her analysis on the drifter data, and Jack Barkowski at Moss Landing Marine Labs for his guidance on classifying humpback song. This project would not have been possible without their help. Finally, on behalf of the entire Seatech program, I would like to thank the Office of Naval Research for their funding and support of the Seatech program and this trip, as well as MathWorks for helping us access licenses to MATLAB, which is vital for all of our research. Thank you. Are there any questions? Yes?
Yeah, awesome research. If you go back to that one plot where you had song versus non-song calls, did do song and non-song occur simultaneously, or do they alternate during the day?
They generally do appear, oh, yeah, we were just asked if song and non-song occur simultaneously or if they like alternate. Generally, we do see song and non-song occurring at the same time. I didn't see a whole lot of that in my scan of the NBO5 data, but that usually is that is something that is totally seen at the same time, where one whale is singing and then another whale in the area is producing non-song sounds. Yeah.
So now I'm wondering if there's any relation to the lunar cycle. Seriously, are the whales more vocal when it's dark or when it's full moon? Maybe there's some correlation there.
So with regards to the lunar cycle and whether or not the song or non-song presence is related to that, I'm not sure. We didn't look into that, but that would be really interesting to look into. It could be a future research question. Yes.
We have one question on Zoom from Lauren White, and they're asking, do you have any thoughts on why waves produce both social calls and songs at the same time? And what purposes might that serve?
That was sort of outside the scope of our research. I mean, song is related to mating and is observed both at mating areas and during migration, and non-song is seen all the time and serves a like variety of communication functions. But yeah, we haven't looked into like whether concurrent song and non-song has any meaning for the whales. Great, thank you. That's all last one.
Awesome. So thank you all for coming. I would like to bring all of the interns back up. We have a special thank you to all of our mentors and that have worked with these students for an entire year and supported them with both our weekly meetings, but much support outside of their normal work time throughout the year. This is a huge amount of work to get all of this research to be done in the amount of time that they have along with their full-time jobs and as well as our students. Apparently they are allowed to do other classes than Seatech. So thank you so much. They'll come up and present. Oh yeah.
We don't need our vote.
There. You need to present your thank you to your mentors. Yeah, call them up. Yeah, call them up.
Nina.
Nina.
Josh's mentor is me.
You wanna come up?
So again, thank you all very much for coming. And thank you for those of you who came to see the presentation online. And we'll see you again next year.
So I think we'll gather outside of Sumner and we can chat, you can meet the students. And I think Nicole also has some extra sticky notes and she'll ask you to share some final thoughts as we're concluding and we're leaving. So please stick around and hang out and let's chat. And thank you everyone who's online for joining. I know that you couldn't be here in person, but we feel you and we really appreciate you being part of the community. So thank you. Okay. Let's go have fun.